Hello and welcome to the Classic Car Weekly podcast, the sibling podcast to the popular weekly title. I'm this week's host, Jesse Billington, the staff writer for the title, and I am joined by our deputy editor, Chris Hope.
Hello.
And our content editor, James Peen.
Ahoy, hoy.
How are we doing, gents? And we'll kick off as we usually do with our classics. How are they? Which, Chris, you're already chuckling away, means there's been no further action on the mini front.
Absolutely nothing. No.
James, obviously, we've been talking sort of classic house, classic cars. Where are we up to this week?
Exactly the same as we were last week. So it's still sat in the driveway, still got a flat tyre, and I've still yet to get my finger out and sort it.
The two blokes with 60s cars are not doing very well at the moment, I think is kind of the gist of it. So
I haven't done anything with mine, but I mean, thankfully, I'm sort of still in that sort of nice phase where all of mine are working, so I don't have to worry too much on that front. The midget hasn't gotten very far since I last drove it to something I can't talk about yet, because that's still under embargo. But I do have a midgety update, which is someone clearly listened to one of our previous episodes where I said, send in any cassettes that you have that you don't want. And someone, actually, I have the note from them, it's written here on a lovely little bookmark. Hi Jesse, a few crap cassettes for your MG midget. Enjoy, Fred, Chief CD Wrangler at Sunburst Books. So that's I think it's a little sort of charity shop, bookshop down in Raynham, so Kent. And they have sent me 6 cassettes. I've got volumes 2, 3 and 4 of Rock and Roll Greats, which is some lovely 50s and 60s sort of proper shake, rattle and roll stuff. Rock Devotions, which is a bit more sort of 80s, 90s. We've got some Eurythmics, Alan Parsons Project on there, Rick Springfield, Bonnie Tyler. Speaking of Bonnie Tyler, we have The Collection, which I will admit to quite liking Bonnie Tyler. I've seen her live at Silverstone Festival it's called the Silverstone Classic many years ago, and then The Love Collection Volume 1, which is some sort of more romantic ballads and bits, which, it's
going to be so awkward if I get a lift in that car and that's playing, isn't it?
Yeah, you're going to sort of pulling up to an event with the roof down, 2 men listening to Woman in Love, The 3 Degrees. There's some more interesting tracks on there. No Regrets, Walker Brothers, Angel of the Morning, Juice Newton, I do quite like that one. Rock Me Gently, Andy Kim, All By Myself, Eric Carmen. There's some interesting choices of tracks on here. But again, your ongoing crap cassettes, I think that's going to become a running sort of segment on this show, is you send us your crap cassettes and I will play them in my car. But anyway, with that out of the way, we've obviously got no further Our Classics updates to do. I can't do mine.
I mean, I could say that I need to fit a radio so I can play crap cassettes as well, but I think, just actually getting some miles on thing might be the more pressing matter. So
yeah, stop the oil leaking out of it before you start the music coming out of it.
Yeah.
Important things first, then add the radio. That's very much the pathway I went down, at least, and it works doing that, at least. It's nice being able to drive it around and listen to things that aren't either your headphones or just the engine churning away constantly.
I mean, what's really put me off is the salt more than anything else on the roads. So there was actually a call for the Mini to be sensibly put into action, but I really just didn't fancy the risk of sort of getting it out on those really quite salt-laden roads. I mean, it's all been washed away now. The weather has been abysmal. It's either been freezing cold or it's been absolutely hoying it down with rain. So it probably is safe to drive on the roads as it stands, sort of thing. But probably rainbow patches would follow me wherever I go at the moment, and it'd be very clear where I've been based on sort of following that breadcrumb trail. So Need to crack on. So very aware that we are now getting to the end of January. It's almost February. I'm running out of winter days, winter months quite rapidly.
That's what the resto show's for. No, actually, I'm just remembering. I did get my MG out recently because I took it to Parkrun. We went and did Great Down Parkrun.
Completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
how do we forget about that?
Yeah, I promised
the disappearing midget. We spotted it from in a car park sort of several hundred feet away, and then when we arrived at said car park, it had done disappearing act. Turns out it was been hidden by a 3 Series. It really does bring into sharp relief how small that car is when you get it parked something next to something modern. So
not even a brand new 3 Series,
no.
Like a generation or 2 old, so still a reasonably sized modern saloon car, and it's just dwarfed by it. But no, I did have that out for Parkrun, drove it there, Great Down, lovely little drive out. And I think on the way there, it was the greatest hits of Bob Seger, and on the way back, it was a mixtape of Oasis. So it was quite nice sort of trundling back through all those little Bedfordshire villages with sort of some absolute bangers from the 90s coming out of the stereo as well. Actually, it was quite a pleasant morning, and a lot of people were sort of turning their heads going, oh, I can hear something interesting approaching, and then this minuscule little yellow car trundles past with cigarettes and alcohol blaring from the stereo. I'm like, yes, I'm having a good morning. But no, it's that's my Old Classics update. So, and that was our crap cassettes section. Send in your crap cassettes. You can find the address for our office. Just send them there. FAO Jesse. They'll get to me. Anyway, we'll move into the first thing I want to talk about, which is best car casting in non-car TV and films. Obviously, we've got award season on the way for most TV and films. We've got BAFTAs, Oscars, and so on and so forth. And I've recently been watching The Night Manager on the BBC. I won't give away any spoilers in this if you're waiting to watch it, or if you're in the foreign markets where it hasn't come out yet, I don't think. But the car casting in it is absolutely brilliant. The sort of lead antagonist, I think I can say as much, drives a relatively new Mercedes-Benz G-Wagen. And then there are some scenes where he has a G-Series Porsche, like an 80s Porsche, and it's in this lovely sort of metallic green colour, really blends in nicely with his character as being sort of this anachronistic character of a different time of the 80s. So these two sort of very 80s cars slot quite nicely into his character, and I think it's a great piece of car casting. But I wanted to sort of open this up to you guys. Other non-car TV and film where they've just done a really good job of picking cars for the characters to drive.
I mean, I've not watched The Night Manager. Is it period? Is it
It's not
current?
It's current time. So yeah, the first one was nearly a decade ago, 2016, based off of the original John le Carré novel, and that was really good. And then they've sort of returned to it in sort of what they believe to be an accurate continuation of it. Tom Hiddleston in it, absolutely fantastic. Very much worth watching if you like a good spy.
My mother-in-law insists that I watch it, but there was this thing called The Traitors, and if you don't watch it the night it's on, the BBC will go out of its way to spoil what happened the night before. So we've been trying to keep up with that sort of thing. So yeah, maybe now that that's over and done with, I can look to watch The Night Manager. Nothing interested in The Traitors in terms of cars. No. There's is it Land Rover Defenders that they use to cart the people around. So
yeah, it's always Defenders.
Exactly, all with suitable sort of license plates on them. I don't know if it's the best, but one of the ones that stands out for me is there has been, it's now on its second series, Return to Paradise, spin-off of Death in Paradise, the red mini moke that was, I had no idea about this program. I was upstairs, came downstairs, and my wife was watching it sort of thing, and I just went, oh, that's a mini moke, and she's like, okay. But yeah, that now shows up quite frequently. I've not gone back and watched series 1, but apparently in series 1 it was revealed under a dust sheet when she comes back. This is a detective who comes back to her home of Australia. She arrives home and this moke is under a dust sheet, and then she brings it into regular action as the means of getting around the fictional sort of setting of Dolphin Cove. And yeah, it has quite a prominent role. It suits the aesthetic really nicely, sort of thing. So,
wait, are you thinking of an Australian spin-off too? Because there's also
so there's Beyond Paradise, there's Death in Paradise, and then there is this new one sort of thing, Return to Paradise. So it's all part. And I don't think it's a shared universe or anything like that. I think I seem to recall that one of the previous sort of protagonists of Death in Paradise appears in. But apart from that, there's not a lot sort of thing.
So Chris, I can't remember the actor's name, Chris something or other. He is in the British continuation series. And I was actually going to mention Death in Paradise because I think the Land Rover that's like the one police vehicle on the island of San Martin or something is a brilliant piece of car casting in a non-car program because it just slots in so well. You don't question why it's there. It just works as a very practical idea. But
then the Beetle Cabriolet works absolutely perfectly for Beyond Paradise as well. So I think just those series as a whole, they nail their car choices sort of thing quite well. So
clearly there's like a runner or a production assistant that's sort of been asked the question, what would this person drive? And they've picked very wisely, and I like that. James, have you got anything that sort of slots in when it comes to sort of interesting films and TV that have just got good car picks in?
So I'm late to the party, but I've just started watching what did I say it was called?
The Crown? No, what was it? We were talking about it earlier. We mentioned
Slow
The Crown.
Horses.
That was it.
With Gary Oldman. Very important. Remember the R when you Google his name. He goes out on a job and he's got a bright yellow 1999 Honda Civic, which is absolutely hammered and dishevelled and full of junk, and it completely matches his personality. And it just kind of reminded me of a guy I used to work with who had a Golf very similar to that. And literally, every time you climbed in there, you needed a shovel to move everything off the seat. We used to call him Pigpen. But his car is absolutely bang on for his personality.
Yeah,
but it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, that's cool. And then you realise it's actually just a really beaten up old Honda.
But it's that sort of ingenious choice of a car is often the extension of a character, so you've got to pick something that slots in really nicely with that character's feel. I think Luther was pretty good at this as well, when there was this sort of very old school detective, and he was mostly driving around in old Volvos, sort of chucking them around London, and it just worked in that sort of the aesthetic of it, and it was quite an interesting sort of choice. The other one I've got on my list is Sexy Beast, I think it was 2000s film, and in it you've got a 1996 Jeep Cherokee, a Porsche 911 Carrera 993, a Mazda MX-5 and a Mercedes CLK, and I think that you could get very film sort of auteur about things when you look at certainly the 911 Carrera, which is driven by, again, the antagonist in the series, in the film, and it's sort of an interesting extension of his character and trying to portray him as this sort of part of this nouveau riche, basically. And the 993 struggled to sort of find a market for itself in period. And looking back on it now, obviously, it's sort of become a bit of a certified classic. It's the first of the water-cooled Porsches, the running egg headlights. But at the time, it was sort of looked down upon as a Porsche, and his character, despite trying to emerge into this upper-class world, is constantly looked down upon. So sort of retrospectively, it's become a very interesting piece of car casting. And at the same time, I think the Mazda MX-5, it's an NB, interesting enough one I've been writing about recently, is driven by one of the criminals' wives in their sort of retreat in Spain. And it's very much a car that you could slot into that scenario. It's a fun little two-seat roadster, the sort of thing you'd treat your wife to with your stolen millions. It's a really good piece of casting, and I think if you've not seen Sexy Beast, go and watch it. Absolutely brilliant film, and it just sort of you can take it apart and sort of digest it as sort of very sort of Siskel and Ebert, but at the same time you just enjoy it as a film. And I think it's got some great acting in it as well. We were talking about what's his face, who plays one of the guys in it.
Oh, Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley's portrayal in that is something that we cannot repeat a single line of his because we'd immediately get sort of taken off the airwaves. But brilliant film, and again some great cars just slotted into it that are so perfectly chosen. It was also the director's first time doing a film. Previously, he'd only ever done TV adverts, and then somehow ended up making a film and nailed it out the bag, which I love.
I mean, talking of directors, have you ever seen Robbery, 1967?
No.
That was directed by Peter Yates, who, from the work he did in that, all the car chases through London, like Mark II Jags sliding sideways, and all that. Brilliant sort of cars in the background. He directed that. Steve McQueen saw it, then got him to come do Bullet.
Ah, nice. It's obviously continuing that idea of sort of this is a guy who knows how to film a car chase. And I think there's certainly something to be said about the way that cars are filmed, because if you go back and watch the Bond franchise is a great example of this, on the fact that it was all rear projection and it was just sort of a locked off camera with a car moving past it, and they got cleverer and cleverer as things went by, attaching cameras to vehicles and things. I still maintain the big turning point for filming cars was the 1966 film Grand Prix, John Frankenheimer, where they were starting to invent new forms of camera for this film. They were attaching them to actual Grand Prix cars and running them in races. And then everyone's gone, oh wow, Formula One, the movie, F1, the movie from 2025. It's so revolutionary. They've been attaching cameras to cars and running them in races.
They've been doing that for a while.
We've been doing this for nearly 60 years, my guy. Please go and watch another film. And it was great because I think at the same time, they, much like they did with Brad Pitt and Damson Idris, they taught the actors for Grand Prix to drive and race, and they competed in a lot of the sort of Grand Prix seasons over which they filmed, to the point that a couple of the drivers are like, they're getting good. They're not getting points for this, are they? They were genuinely concerned that they were going to start actually becoming a problem in the championship. So much time was spent with I think it was James Coburn. I can't remember the actor's name who was in it.
James Garner, isn't it?
Yes. James Garner got so good at driving, taught by Carroll Shelby nonetheless for this, and the net result was he actually got quite good at Grand Prix driving and driving single-seaters. So it's a really interesting film, both when it comes to the way that we started filming cars and portraying cars and motor action on screen. It's one of my favourite things to get a bit too deep and talk about.
Isn't that just Steve McQueen was doing originally do that, but then he went off and did Le Mans because he didn't get the creative control he wanted. So there's like real intense rivalry between the two of them, and like not only in the films but also in the world of driving.
Yes, yeah, because obviously Steve McQueen sort of established it with a sort of good motoring passion to him and a great creative mind, wanted to make a motorsports film, but ended up, like you said, doing Le Mans for the reason he wanted control over it. And I think both of them still tell a very interesting story of sort of very character driven, but the story is still continued on track in the way that they shoot the cars and have these close-ups of the people involved in it. Again, this is a period of open-face helmets, so you see the actors, the emotions, and it's really interestingly shot. And I appreciate this is getting incredibly off topic for a classic car weekly podcast, but there's classic cars in it. We can let it slide. But no, it's Le Mans, again, if you've not watched it, is a very good film.
Just the opening sequence that where McQueen did his slate grey 911. It's like classic opener.
Yeah, I mean, for classic openers, it's got to be up there with the Italian Job, which is one of the all-time sort of car opening sequences, I think, in film. I cannot think of anything else that comes close.
I think we were looking at non-car films as well. The one that stood out for me, obviously, Christmas it feels like a long time ago, but it's not actually. The Full Monty was on, and that was such a wow moment for me because it's sort of late 90s, it's actually 97, I Googled it sort of thing. And just... one of the main sort of piece of content every week I sort of look after is The Way We Were. It was literally moving The Way We Were scenes. Just any time there was sort of any sort of B-roll where the characters were transitioning sort of thing. Just like, you know, there was Alpha 33, Citroen BXs, Micras, but then it goes back to things like Princesses sort of thing. And it was for me that sort of moment in time where it's just that real sort of transition from sort of British to foreign becoming sort of normal sort of thing. And yeah, it was just sort of seeing sort of the cars in the background, like Renault 5s and things like that. I'd never appreciated at the time. I mean, obviously I watched it when I was younger sort of thing, but they were just cars. Now they've become classic cars. So it was really odd to go, whenever you sort of spotted something that I now find interesting sort of thing that was just second-hand car at the time sort of thing. I suppose what I'm saying is I feel old, but it was still entertaining to sort of see just all of these sort of interesting bits of metal sort of like, you know, like Mark II Fiestas used in their tradition in as the way they were intended before they became classic sort of thing. It just really sort of like stand out to me.
Yeah, I've pulled it up on Internet Movie Car Database, a great resource for just trying to find things, and there's so many just background bits that it's able to pick out and go, just look at this, and you could just take a screenshot from any one of those. Like you said, it would make a brilliant sort of The Way We Were scene. And I think there's sort of
just these terraces and just the cars sort of parked outside
using that. So. Yeah, and I've forgotten that this is actually just going to be showcasing my wallpaper pictures. There's the Hungarian Grand Prix from 2023 with my girlfriend. You can get buckets of cocktail at that for about £5 a go, so that was good fun. That'll change in about 50 seconds. But no, Full Monty, yeah, that's another good one. Just looking at the cars that are popping up in it, it's just normal cars as well. They've got Princess 2, Renault 5s, early Lagunas as well. Everything from that sort of transition point from the 80s to the 90s. Never thought of it as one for sort of car casting, but it's a good pick.
It got it right because it was just those were the cars that were parked there, sort of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So it was real life. So therefore, it now looks. Yeah, I assume there was some effort to sort of decide what cars went where, sort of thing. But I don't think it was much more sort of considered than Terry, get your car and just park it there for us, mate. We need to fill this scene, that sort of thing. So
yeah, like there was a proper effort made.
But as a car geek, there's nothing worse when you watch something and you see a car that shouldn't be from that era.
Yeah.
So like if I see like a late 60s Beetle and an early 60s, I'm like, no, wrong real lights.
That's very specific. But yeah, there are times when you sort of look at it and go, either that car simply did not exist at this point in time, or I don't think that character would drive that car. That's the thing that gets me. I'm like, you have sort of quite a dour businessman, and for them, for some reason, they have a sports car or something quite exciting and interesting. You go, no, that's not them. It's an interesting thing, and one of those things that's sort of about the magic of movies is the effort that goes into all the little background bits.
It's funny though because you say that because I was talking to my wife the other day and we were watching something and this like young girl was meant to be driving this really beaten up rubbish car that she'd inherited, and it was a Volvo Estate. And I was like, that's really cool. That's not a rubbish car.
I have this same thing with, it's an interpretation of Cinderella starring, I think it's Hilary Duff. It would have been like a Disney's original movie in the early noughties, and she drives a clunker car. And what that means is it's a first generation Mustang, which would have been about a 30 to 40 year old car when it was filmed. So it is sort of a bit of a second hand sort of junker. But retrospectively now I'm going, that's a really tidy convertible 65 Mustang. That's a nice car. And like the flash cars that the Ugly Stepsisters in Film Drive, I think are the new model Beetles. So I'm sort of going, I get the whole point is we side with Cinderella. I get it, but at the same time, the car casting doesn't play into the idea. It's that sort of rags to riches thing, and I'm like, no, but the car I want when she's in rags is the one I want.
I don't know. Was it The Night Manager or something else? But it starts with a woman driving a car that her husband had left her, and like she ends up having to sell it because it's a load of rubbish. And it's a Triumph Stag.
It might be. It also happens in Croupier, which was another sort of weird 90s heist film. And the beaten up old car he's driving is a BN6 Austin Healey 3000. I'm like, that's a nice car. And it's portrayed as being sold for a couple of £100 just to sort of free up a bit of cash, get rid of it, move on. I'm like, what do you mean you sold that for a few £100?
I'll buy it for a few £100.
Yeah, it's a bit ratty. The interior needed doing, but I'm like, that's a really tidy Healey 3000. I'll take that off your hands if you're selling it for about that much. It's also when you see cars that get binned in films as sort of like background props, and you go, oh, that's worth something now.
Have you ever seen Condor Man?
No.
So it's the guy from
Some Others Do Heaven. Yes.
There's the superhero. There's a big chase sequence in it. He's in the Condor Mobile, and he's chased by about 8 black 911 turbos, and they write him all off.
I had this with the Dirty Harry series. It gets a bit more sort of stupid as the series rolls on, but at one point in it, just in a car park, they blow up a 77 Trans Am, and for me that's heartbreaking because that's an absolute dream car there, and they're like, we found this, we've blown it up for set dressing. I'm like, oh, that's painful.
But then how many Dodge Chargers were destroyed in Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh yeah, they were responsible for sort of like an elimination program. It's like the inverse of a breeding program that Dukes of Hazzard were running for 70 Chargers. And you're like, oh yeah, tricky.
I think I did read on a random press release that the Fast and Furious franchise is still the greatest defender.
Yeah,
for cars destroyed and value spent on cars destroyed. So
yeah, I can see that being a case in point. Again, they're a good one for car casting though, but they're very specifically about cars. You sort of anticipate that. Certainly the first 3 films are very good when it comes to car casting, because I know the first one was simply built off the idea of there was a magazine article written in the late 90s called The Fast and Furious, and it was about the street racing scene in like Los Angeles, California, and someone spun it into this idea for a heist movie, and then it obviously grew from there. But the cars they picked for it were so apropos of the moment. It's really good. And I've always loved the ones they did for Tokyo Drift as well, really leaning into the Japanese scene, picking some interesting cars, but also ones that a Western audience will recognise, things like the Evo, things like the 350Z. But they sort of got a bit sort of interesting with it in the way the cars are modified, and I love that as a series, certainly in its early days, but then afterwards it just becomes a...
Let's go to the moon!
Yeah, let's go to the moon and let's just see how many cars we can buy on the cheap and bend them, because they're very dedicated to doing practical stunts, which on one hand I appreciate, on the other hand, please stop ruining so many nice cars.
It wasn't the record for the most cars destroyed in one movie, the Blues Brothers, for a long time.
It was, yeah, just that giant cop car pile-up scene under, like, was it one of the Illinois subway lines?
It just keeps on coming, doesn't it? You think that no more cars can come through.
They just keep throwing Caprices into a pile. And again, no one really cares about that. It's like, sort of, if you filmed something in the UK in, like, 2008 and just kept throwing Mark 1 and Mark 2 Mondeos into a pile, it's that sort of idea. The problem is now people look back and go, oh, Caprice, I quite like those. Especially because they had the LT1 V8 in them, which is quite a popular engine to drop into things. You've got a decent transmission to them. The estate versions are very rare these days as well. And you used to be able to get them with posit traction, limited slip diff. Again, moot point. But it's, yeah, I think the way that films sometimes treat cars, they do treat them with reverence, things like the James Bond Aston Martin DB5, and then sometimes they treat them as entirely disposable. It's only when people get a bit weird with it we go, I can't believe you've done that to a nice car. I think they did it to a Nissan 280Z in Herbie Reloaded as well, when the lead character is looking to buy a car from a junkyard, and there is a very nice, I think it's a Nissan sports car that she comes across and goes, I'll have this. And then sort of the magic of the film, a car is dropped on it in the junkyard, crushing it, so she ends up buying Herbie. And I'm like, oh, that could have been salvageable. Which is really annoying. Not by me, ultimately. But again, this is the thing that I don't get with people, when people are annoyed when people modify cars, when they've bought an absolute sort of shell of a car and restored it into something a bit more interesting and unique. And people go, oh, I can't believe you've done that to it. And they go, well, why didn't you buy it and
Exactly.
restore it to pristine?
Exactly.
I know Flying Castrol has long had this as a sort of fighting point, is people going, oh, I can't believe you've ruined what would have been a really nice Castrol. And they go, well, if you wanted to save it, you could have bought it. It was listed on an website for sale. You could have found it and bought it and done it yourself. Instead, we've saved it. It's still got relatively the original bodywork. But it's now got a 2.5 litre Audi 5-cylinder in it, making
You've
about...
paid the money to become the custodian, therefore you have full rights over what you do with that car. That's always been my take. I might not agree with it, I might not like it, but I'm not going to have a go at you for it.
Yeah, your choice to do with it as you please. I've got a mate who's building, I think it's a Mark II Healy Sprite at the moment, which has long been his sort of show car for the car park show scene. And he's got sort of a Jaguar CD type sort of inspired hoop going over sort of the rear base of it. It's completely lowered. It's onto... Why is that turning itself off? Oh, well. It's completely lowered, nice alloys on it, and he's got a giant sort of Weber carburettor poking out the top, as well as an exhaust that loops around and pokes out the top for sort of proper spits, bangs, and pops. And this car has been through so many iterations of silly mods. It's sort of recognised for it now, but at the same time, he's preserved and maintains a lot of historic racing cars. I think he's got a bit of leeway to sort of muck around with one.
Context is key, isn't it? It's dependent on the car, it's dependent on the person doing it, so yeah.
Yeah, one of those things. We'll move on to the second point in this week's topic of conversation, and we'll sort of lean a bit more towards what's actually in the issue. And this is the Pomeroy Trophy. It's coming up in a few weekends' time. Sister title Practical Classics have got their workshop editor, Matt Tompkins, running in it in his... I think he's running a Morris Minor Traveller, yeah. So he's at least going to pass the luggage test. But this begs the question, if I gave you guys a budget of £10,000 and said you've got to pick something that could win the Pomeroy Trophy, what do you go for? You've got to go for something that's going to pass all the handling tests. You've got to pass the boot space test and do fairly well on the track performance section.
Come on.
Saab 9.5.
It's a good shout.
Ooh.
It's a good shout.
What, estate or saloon?
The ugly estate version, which I really, really do like.
I quite like that as well. Yeah, that's a solid choice. I think the handling, you might be right there, actually.
You're on the gravel sections.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly all on tarmac as well around the car
Forget
parks.
that then.
Yeah, so you don't need to slide it around too much. As long as you can sort of figure of 8 it, slalom it, and back it into a tight parking bay with ease, I think you're all right.
There's no price constraints. I mean, you've said try and keep it. You've added one, haven't you? So just to make it even more complicated.
Yeah.
I reckon you can still get... Well, the price that Jesse said we can spend up to a maximum of is £10,000. I think you can still get 205 GTI for that, and I think that would do very well. Particularly on the handling side of things. It's a hatchback, so the boot should be fine. Performance, yeah.
Well, the performance is bracketed by sort of age and engine capacity, so it's not like you've got to outpace the one guy that will inevitably turn up in a 250 GTI. You've not got to beat that round Silverstone. And equally, it's how many laps you can do at a certain amount of distance that's calculated by your car's weight, horsepower, age, so on and so forth. So you're given a target point to aim for, and I reckon the Peugeot has aged well enough that you should be able to meet that performance point quite easily.
I think it'll just be fun. With these things, I've done these sort of things before. I'm never really good at them. I just want to have a good time, and I know I'll have a good time in a 205. So
that's a reasonable answer, I think. If I'm going to go for something though, I think I might go down the similar line to Tompkins, Traveller, but mini. So mini Clubman. Because you're going to get stuff in the back, but it's going to handle a lot better. And again, if you go
Is it? Handling?
Well, it's still the mini wheelbase, isn't it? It's relatively short, relatively tidy, but also you don't have a competitive bracket to enter it into. It's not going to be super competitive. If you get like a 998cc 1 litre, you've only got to weave it around Silverstone. It's going to be absolutely screaming its nuts off around some of the long straights at Silverstone. But I think
you're going to struggle to get one for 10 grand though. Under your own
auspices. That's a good point, yeah.
So what's the trade-off? How much do you have to actually carry in the boot?
You have to carry... It's defined as like the...
Are you just better off getting a smaller car that's going to be really quick around the track?
Let's Google this. Pomeroy Trophy.
Do you get something like an A35 pickup, and then you can just pile it as high as you like?
Suitcase. The suitcase test guidelines. Here we go. This is the official PDF from the VSCC. So the suitcase test is one of the elements of the Pomeroy Trophy which sets it aside from most other events in the world and often raises many queries during scrutineering. In order to help clarify the regulations, we've created a guide as to what is acceptable and what is considered a failure. For each suitcase you cannot carry properly in your car, you will carry a penalty of 20 marks. All cars must be tested properly at scrutineering and have the cases placed within the car. Spare wheels must be carried whilst undertaking the suitcase test. So you can't take the spare wheel off.
Then. So it's in the car. It's not even just the boot.
It's in the car, yeah. So there's a couple of shots here, and I'll attach this into the video format as well. So obviously, standard boot, slot it in there. If you've got a proper boot rack or luggage rack, fine. Chuck them on the back seat in apparently this 1920s saloon car. Simply loading them in, this counts as a pass into the back of
that's not
an Austin 7 Special.
Gonna...
Roof racking, again, fine. You're simply placing them on top of the folding roof of your Bentley Tourer. Acceptable.
I could have just got an M100 Elan then and just got a load of ratchet straps.
Changes everything, doesn't it?
I'm going to say.
I don't know how many you need to fit in, though. That's the thing. It seems to be 2. So
crucially, it is in, not... Mind you, you've just shown us photos of roof rack. It's on, not necessarily in.
If you can get an M100 Lan with a boot rack, I think you're fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It seems to be very arbitrary how they scrutineer this, despite the fact they've given us a photo.
I can be very inventive with ratchet straps.
Yeah.
Just go underneath the car and attach it to the sides, and I'll just hop in.
I mean, I've done some stupid things with ratchet straps before, so I think I should be able to pass this regardless of what vehicle I pick. But if that's the case, then yes, sort of a Series 2 or 3 Elan would do really quite nicely. Well, hell, you could probably go...
forget the 205. I'm just going to go to that event and do the stupidest thing possible with ratchet straps. I think that's kind of my goal, whether I come first or last.
Passenger seat isn't allowed because that falls under the fail category, so that sort of rules out...
But rear seats is fine.
Rear seats is apparently fine, yeah. So you've got to be able to carry at least one passenger with and the luggage. So,
Attach it to the bonnet. Doesn't matter if I see through it or
no,
not.
Elan Plus 2, it's fine.
Yeah.
Then you've got your back seats, you just slot them into there and away you go. I think that's the solution here. But it's a great event. Annoyingly, it's falling on Valentine's Day this year, so I'm likely going to be preoccupied, and I'm surprised Matt Tompkins has been able to swing this one. But it's going to be an interesting one to watch out for. And again, there's always an incredible variety of cars that turn up to this, because unlike most VSCC events where it's retained to sort of vintage sports cars, this is open to modern sports cars as well and classic sports cars. So you often see things like a 1920s Bentley Tourer
up against a Renault Clio.
Renault Clio. There's been modern Bentley Continentals going into this. There's all sorts, and it all just ends up sort of on track all at once, and just sort of go for your distance and off you go. So it's a bit of a wild ride, but a great one to sort of watch and spectate.
Where is it this year?
It's Silverstone.
It's always Silverstone.
Always held at Silverstone, so it's always against the Grand Prix circuit. They set up all the handling courses on the infield, and obviously all the scrutineering garages and so on and so forth in there. I think there's some really interesting bits and pieces sort of that will rock up to it every year, because a lot of people... You can do it in a relatively unmodified car as the other half of this. It's got to be a road-going vehicle. You can do it in a race car, but it's got to still have VIN number, plates, and be able to go on the road.
I get the impression that most people also show up their car that doesn't arrive on the back of a trailer. They just drive to the event and then do it, sort of things.
I think you actually get points if you've driven the car to it.
Oh,
as
right,
well.
okay.
Yeah, you lose points, I believe, if you have to trailer your vehicle to it.
Yeah.
So there is this incentive that you have to drive your car there, run it, and drive it away again. I don't think the drive it away again is too particular, but certainly if you've been able to drive it to the event, run it at the event, if you break it during the event, whoops, but you don't lose points for not being able to drive it away afterwards. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and if you've got a free Sunday on the 14th, head along to it, give it a watch. It looks like good fun, and I'm sure we'll slot some coverage into the paper afterwards as well. We'll get some photographs and see who's done well, and if someone has turned
Chat with Matt, see how we got on.
Yeah, if someone has turned up with a Ferrari 250 GTO because they've gone, well, I've got loads of boot space to put these 2 suitcases into, and it fires up the 3-litre V12 and sods off into the distance. But no, it's a very interesting challenge. But that gives us plenty to talk about on this week's episode of the podcast, and a nice point to wrap up on. Obviously, please keep sending in your cassettes, and give us your ideas of great car casting for non-car TV and film, because obviously we've got a bit off topic with that one, but there's obviously going to be some interesting choices from the audience. Let us know. Drop us a line editorial at Classic Car Weekly, or drop us a comment on the YouTube page, and we'll go and find it and perhaps sort of discuss those on a future episode, because it's one that's always interesting, and certainly to car fans it always stands out. Any final points to add, gents?
No, just keep sending the cassettes. It's always interesting.
It's good. I can see this being a very...
You're rocking the actual cassette player today with headphones, sort of.
I have. So, I bought my Walkman.
So I'm surprised that you've not robbed him of his cassettes yet. Sort of.
No, but I think we could get an ultimate CCW driving mix.
Yes.
Going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to, start commenting on the YouTube page your ultimate driving tunes, and we'll try and burn together a mixtape for James and I to share between his Walkman and my MG, and we'll go from there. But yeah, you're welcome to borrow the Bonnie Tyler cassette if you want.
Don't tempt me, Frodo.
Anyway, that's all we've got time for on this week's episode of the Classic Car Weekly podcast. We'll be back next week with another edition of Classic Car Weekly and another Classic Car Weekly podcast episode. Thank you very much for listening.